Sandeep Aggarwal, founder of ShopClues Droom. And I will maybe talk a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey and how the two companies I have created are becoming part of the ecosystem, has probably helped in creating larger ecosystem for the Indian entrepreneurial industry. So I actually I started Droom in April 2014 when I was thinking what should I do after ShopClues. And that time I focused a lot on a few of the things which were part of my prior training, my experience. Many years back I had worked in Microsoft in the corporate headquarters in Redmond, Washington, and had an opportunity to work very closely with Bill Gates. And a couple of things I learned there were always focus on big addressable opportunity, always think about technology as a main role, and then I also combined a few of my Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street for almost a decade as an internet research analyst, so I combined some of my knowledge from there in terms of what kind of businesses have created significant value, who have changed permanently one industry from archaic, antiquated to a 21st century experience. So that's how, when I was thinking what I was going to do next, I honestly came up with 52 different ideas, and each one I thought would be something which was in the consumer internet, which is something I'm passionate about. It all were part of the technology-driven businesses, and everywhere I thought I could create a minimum $1 billion industry. So when I looked into various ventures, Droom, I found it more fascinating because India is the third largest automobile market in the world, yet only 4% of Indian households have a car and 25% Indian households have a two-wheeler. From the time Henry Ford invented assembly line, cars have become really advanced. We are talking about a driverless car. We are talking about a car which can fly. Dubai just announced that next year you will have actually flying car as an air taxi. So there are a lot of advancements have happened. With a single charge, a lithium battery can take a car 300 to 500 kilometers. So a lot of these things have happened. But if you think about buying and selling used vehicle in a country like India, is very, very antiquated. It still has not evolved in last 70, 80 years. So I thought I can create another marketplace where I can permanently change how automobiles are bought and sold. There is something called data science, which did not exist even as early as when I started my first company, ShopClues. So I can leverage a lot of data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and also when I started ShopClues, that time there were a few e-commerce companies, but people were still very suspicious. They would not buy more expensive items. Battery pack, pair of shoes, T-shirt. Sometime maybe from a larger non-brand, a laptop or mobile phone was fine, but people would not buy a lot of things online. And so that time I started ShopClues, but when I started Droom, I realized that internet was becoming the biggest friend, especially for the millennial population of this country. And this country probably has the world's highest millennial population. So I thought, however funny it may sound, but right from looking for a dating partner to a life partner, admission in university, buying a house, looking for a home loan, and buying an automobile, all are enabled by online. So I thought market is ready, and we can probably create a 21st century experience. So that's how Droom started. Prior to that, I started ShopClues. So ShopClues journey goes something like this. I grew up in India, in Chandigarh, and in my mid-20s, I went to the United States for my MBA. I worked with 3 Fortune 100 companies, and then worked on Wall Street as an internet research analyst, and covered companies like Google, Amazon, eBay, all the Chinese internet stocks. And Make My Trip goes public in August 2010 and get listed on NASDAQ. And that time I thought, while I was in San Francisco covering all the American internet companies, I somehow thought I should cover as an analyst research coverage for Make My Trip, which will bring me closer to India. So as soon as the public went public, Make My Trip went public, I actually wrote a research report. And that was the first ever report by an internet analyst which put the global structure to India's consumer internet industry, which was still at a very early stage. And while writing the report on my flight back from Delhi to San Francisco, I thought, why I'm just participating in this great revolution which I can see happening by just writing a report, why not I create an underlying asset? And that time, all the e-commerce companies in India were inventory-led model. In fact, there was no concept of marketplace. They would buy something for 10 rupee and sell it for 12 rupee. It was like that. So I thought, why not to create India's first marketplace? India is a home for small and medium businesses. They don't have deep pockets. They don't know technology. So many of them do not even know English. But they can source an item bigger and better than you can ever do, or we can ever do. How about we give them a platform where they don't need to know technology, they don't need to know much of the English, they don't need to have deep pockets, but they still can participate as India's retail move online rather than becoming less relevant with the rise of Tesco, Carrefour, Walmart, and all other organized retail. So that's how I started ShopClues. When I started ShopClues, I must say the entrepreneurial ecosystem of this country was much smaller. There were 10, 15 names. There were still, Flipkart was still there. Snapdeal almost worked like a Groupon, a group buying website. Couple of companies which do not exist, like Deals and You and Fashion and You had raised a lot of money. But still, ecosystem was very, 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 very small. And they were probably, that time, if you combine the entire market cap of all the public and private internet companies, it was probably 2 or 3 billion, versus, let's say today, around 40 to 50 billion. So the ecosystem was very early. I remember, in San Francisco, every job starts with a beautiful building, high-rise building. You can see Alcatraz or Golden Gate Bridge. You can see ocean. You can see a lot of good views. Everyone starts from a fancy offices. That's how America and maybe the downtown of San Francisco is. So when you tell someone that you work in a startup, how about starting from a garage? Here's your laptop. Come tomorrow at 9 a.m. People will find it very fascinating and they will start. If you think about it, that's how Xerox and HP in late 50s and early 60s started. That's how in late 90s Google started. That's how most of the startups started. But here, when I started ShopClues, I had a very normal, I would say, from Indian standard, an average type of office, because I'm a frugal entrepreneur. I think the capital is a scarce resource and you have to deploy very thoughtfully. So I took a very normal office and I started hiring. And some people would, from my perspective, the interview was going great, but a lot of people will not join. Later on, I learned that a lot of people were actually judging everything based on the office. So, I'm just trying to give you a feel that working from a garage, working from a startup type of office was still not cool that time. And ecosystem was very small. There were 6, 7 venture capitalists. Most of them behaved more like a private equity guys who would be more like a money lender, while venture capital means risk capital, and they partner with entrepreneurs so that their capital can grow and entrepreneur can create a world-class product or service. These VCs were very, very risk averse. They were investing very tiny capital, and the definition of scale, like how our technology business, how big our technology business can be, how large our technology business can be, was very, it was very small. We just did not think, because this country did not participate in Industrial Revolution in 1740. This country did not go through a lot of things which the West has gone in last 250 years. So we did not have highly scalable businesses. In the more contemporary India, the scalable businesses we have created are like TCS, Wipro, Infosys, Cognizant, Zanpact. But in the consumer internet, most of the things we were consuming, from Google to LinkedIn to Facebook to Twitter, everything was coming from the American companies. So we were not very used to having a scalable business in this country. Flipkart did an amazing job of solving two problems for e-commerce. One was payment problem, where they promoted cash on delivery. Second one, they realized sooner than, better than, faster than any other e-commerce company that the moment of truth for e-commerce is fulfillment and not deals and promotions. And that's how they paved way. So anyhow, all this I'm trying to give you a flavor of how in 2011 when I started ShopClues, how the ecosystem was, how the various companies were, what was the scene in the venture capital, and how the professionals perceived startups. I also remember I was interviewing the first person in product management role at ShopClues. He was graduating from IIM Lucknow, and he was a little bit more well-read. He knew about so many startup stories from Silicon Valley. So he was very fascinated by the idea of joining ShopClues, and perhaps he liked my energies, he liked the vision. But he told me so many times that he's engaged and he's going to get married 7-8 months from now, and he's not sure whether he joins the startup, how his future in-laws will perceive that, how his peer group will perceive that. Should he be thinking about more stable, rewarding job and usual names such as ICICI Bank or Tata Motors and so on, rather than a startup. So anyhow, so that's how things were. But it has obviously changed. While coming to this session, I was just thinking, last 3.5 years, Droom has gone. We were the 8th or 9th company in automobile industry online in India. Today we are the largest. We own 65% market share. We do roughly 4,100 crore rupees in annual revenue. And actually, in fact, at that scale, we are the 3rd largest e-commerce company in India after Flipkart and Amazon India. But I was still thinking, and we have great culture. I proved myself as an entrepreneur at ShopClues with becoming a $1 billion company in its 5th year, and hopefully Droom becoming a unicorn very soon. But I was just still thinking, coming to here, we actually have lost at least 25 people in last 3 years because they wanted to do something of their own. There are many people, there are many engineers, many people in marketing career track, in finance career track, in HR, in various roles, product management. So many people have left Droom to start their entrepreneurial journey. And I'm actually very, very excited about that. I think the definition of entrepreneurialism is changing. It is not linked by your title, your salary, and how many stocks you own. I think it is linked to the sense of ownership, autonomy, and how much impact you can make from your own career using your own passion and energy. So that's where I think India's entrepreneurial ecosystem is right now, where between you, where you are and where you can be, there's only one person, and that is you. And I think in the current era, the opportunities India is offering in entrepreneurial environment, I think it is just, I would compare it like a renaissance in 1400 in Europe, or Industrial Revolution in 1740 in Europe, or a gold rush in California in 1850, or the rise of USA, after the World War I and II, rise of Japan from 1960 until 1985, and I would say rise of China from 1970 until now. So I think what is happening in this country, in my view, is among the 7 or 8 largest man-made modern history, social transformation, and economic wealth creation opportunity. And I think you all have equal chance as we further democratize the entrepreneurship. This country is no longer only rewarding what is your last name, how much wealth your father or your previous generations left for you, which college you graduated, and so on, but it's only focusing that can you follow your passion and energy? Can you dare to be an entrepreneur? Can you withstand peer pressure? And are you okay even if you make attempts and fail? I think in my view, failure is becoming celebratory in this country. I think we were a little bit more perception-driven society, but when I meet people, especially the current youth and people who want to be entrepreneur, they actually find all those previous things very shallow. They just want to focus on what is the opportunity they have, what they feel passionate about, and that's the current India. So I feel, just going back, if you think about it, when I landed here in this country in 2011, after 15 years in Silicon Valley, this country had created, maybe just I'm using wealth as one of the indicator of what has happened. It had a $3 billion, as I mentioned earlier, market cap for all the public and private internet companies. That is currently around 45 to 50 billion. And it has probably, if you think about it, and okay, let me just say this thing first. I feel by 2025, India can probably create $500 billion minimum new wealth, and it can bring deep social transformation, whether it is education, health, and accessibility of lot of services and products which almost are given in this country as a privilege, not a right. So I think there's a golden opportunity, and I think in the new era of entrepreneurship, in my view, really started happening in 2010, and it is probably will last for decades and decades to come. So many of you who have entrepreneurial dream, I think the entry barriers are coming down. I think more people believe in you. I think there are more venture capitalists and capital which is available. And I think the ecosystem is available, is minimum. It's available in a way that you will get more encouragement rather than discouragement. So, I would highly encourage everyone who has a dream to be an entrepreneur. You see an opportunity very uniquely versus others. You see a pain point which you can solve bigger than, better than, cheaper than others. Please just don't keep your idea next to your chest. Go ahead and fulfill your dream, because we are living in among the 7 or 8 last 300 years biggest social transformation, wealth creation opportunity. Last thing I would say is, if you think about it, in US, Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, even in the old era, Thomas Edison, Graham Bell, so many innovators, inventors, or entrepreneurs who almost became like heroes. In this country, prior to entrepreneurship, the local heroes were either the Bollywood heroes, or the cricketers, or maybe the famous politicians, or those businessmen who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, who had a last name, which alone is a symbol of wealth, entrepreneurship, a very blue-blooded family background. But if you think about it, last 10 years or so, last 8 years, India has created a lot of local heroes which you and I can relate to. So Deep Karra from Make My Trip, Sanjeev Aggarwal, Hitesh Oberoi from Naukri.com, Sachin Bansal, Billy Bansal from Flipkart, Kunal Ghal and Snap. So, yes, sorry, I did not mean to hurt your sentiments. So yes, but thank you for adding the name. So I'm just highlighting, and by the way, names I'm highlighting, not necessarily all of them are close friend of mine. Just if you smell a conflict of interest. But what I'm trying to say is this country has now created local heroes. And we can relate to them. You know why we can relate to them? Because they have three things common which most of us in this room have. One, none of us are were born with a silver spoon in mouth. We all chose cerebral education as a way to make career, right? And we all come from middle class family values. So if you think about it, that is a change to India, which is waiting for you, and it does not reward anymore something which was only a privilege in the past. So there's a complete democratization of entrepreneurship, and you have opportunity to either make a deep social transformation with your entrepreneurial efforts and hard work, or create a wealth, or both. So that is the idea, and I'm very, very happy that I got opportunity to be part of this entrepreneur, to part of this entrepreneurial revolution in this country, contribute my bit to build the ecosystem in this country, and hopefully encourage and motivate a lot of people, a lot of youth who can follow the dreams. I can tell you just last thing. Academically, I was never a gifted person. If someone asked me to run 100 meters, I would be probably, out of the 20 people, I will be 20th. But I had one thing, that after 10 years also, I will still keep on running, while the other 19 probably have already left running. So, but all I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of odds which were not in my favor, and I feel very fortunate and blessed that I was still able to create two large consumer internet companies in this country. And I think almost all of you have an equal opportunity to create world-class companies and services and earn a lot of pride for yourself and your loved ones. So thank you everyone, and I hope you follow your entrepreneurial journey.